In early March 2025, something unusual appeared in a quiet field outside the Colombian city of Buga. Locals reported hearing a strange metallic hum in the night, followed by a bright flash streaking across the sky. Witnesses described it as falling gently to the ground, leaving only a shallow indentation in the soil. It did not crash or explode, which immediately sparked curiosity and a sense of wonder among the community. By the following morning, the news had spread, and photos of metallic sphere began circulating online under headlines suggesting something unexplained had landed in Buga. At first, many assumed it was part of a satellite or a weather balloon. The Colombian Civil Aviation Authority checked radar data for any re-entry objects, but nothing was found. Even the Colombian Air Force confirmed that no aircraft or known space object had passed over the area at that time. Authorities arrived, secured the site, and found a smooth, metallic sphere about 80 centimeters in diameter, strangely cool to the touch despite being exposed to sunlight for several hours. The object had no visible markings, serial numbers, seams, or welds. Its surface seemed perfectly formed, hinting at an unknown or highly advanced fabrication process. Local police cordoned off the area and contacted experts from universities in Bogotá for analysis. Before the sphere could be moved officially, a team led by a journalist and investigator of aerial phenomena, Haim Mosen, visited the site to document and recover it. This event would set in motion one of the most talked about scientific mysteries of the decade. The recovery footage showed 4 people lifting the sphere using nylon straps, remarking on its surprising weight, which was later confirmed to be around 25 kilograms. Observers noticed that when the sphere was rolled, it seemed to resist movement in certain directions, suggesting something inside shifted to maintain equilibrium. Initial tests revealed the object was primarily composed of aluminum and zinc, with traces of magnesium, nickel, and manganese. However, closer examination of its surface revealed intricate geometric patterns etched into the material. These were not decorative but seemed functional, forming part of the structure itself. High-resolution photos showed no seams or joints, implying it had been manufactured as a single unit. Experts were divided. Some suggested it could be a highly sophisticated work of art created with advanced technology. Others speculated that it might be a classified aerospace component. Yet online communities immediately jumped to a more intriguing possibility, that the sphere was not of this world. Infrared imaging seemed to detect a faint, rhythmic energy pulsing from inside, inconsistent with heat or electricity. Mosen's team suggested it might react to the Earth's magnetic field, though critics demanded proof. Within days, the object, dubbed the Buga Sphere, became an international topic of discussion, with scientists and independent analysts closely monitoring its behavior. When the sphere was shipped to Mexico for controlled testing under several laboratories, including the National Autonomous University, the first electromagnetic experiments began. Initially, the sphere appeared normal, and many researchers assumed it was simply a dense metal object. However, as the team applied controlled electrical currents, the sphere displayed unusual behaviors. Instruments recorded temperature fluctuations without heat sources, small weight changes, and electromagnetic pulses that seemed to respond to the power rather than resist it. Observers described the object as breathing, contracting and stabilizing in ways no ordinary material could. Technicians recalibrated sensors multiple times, and each test produced the same anomalies. Data leaks from the lab's internal network revealed confusion and disbelief spreading among the team. While some hypothesized it could be an internal energy redistribution or a thermal effect, the pattern did not match any known signature. By midday, an independent physicist reviewed the data, commenting that the results should not be happening. Photos circulated among analysts showed circular energy patterns on magnetometers forming a tri-lobe shape, rotating around a central point. This precise symmetry and energy pattern hinted at something more complex than any known physical object. Within hours, clips of the test circulated online, stripped of metadata, fueling discussions about possible unknown technology. Internal notes mention a resonance pattern identical to 1989 theoretical model Lazar, referencing Bob Lazar, a controversial figure who claimed decades earlier to have worked on reverse engineering extraterrestrial propulsion systems. The connection reignited interest in his story and sparked debates among scientists and enthusiasts alike. Observers noted that the sphere's internal structure, with cavities arranged symmetrically around a dense core, closely resemble Lazar's descriptions of a gravity reactor. Even the faint channels connecting these cavities resembled the theoretical gravity waveguides he described. While skeptics pointed out that similar patterns can exist in turbines or gyroscopic devices, the combination of symmetry, density, and the unusual electromagnetic reactions left room for speculation. Independent engineers noted that the sphere redirected applied energy rather than simply absorbing it, suggesting a controlled internal feedback system. These findings led to discussions that the sphere could, in theory, act as a primitive gravity amplifier. The mystery intensified as the experiments continued. Later rounds of testing revealed that when high-frequency fields were applied, the sphere stabilized into a harmonic resonance with 3 nodes rotating around a central pulse. Scientists were astonished. Some whispered that the configuration matched Lazar's 1989 sketches almost exactly. Discussions of the term gravity amplifier spread among researchers, first jokingly, then with increasing seriousness. Leaks of the experimental documents comparing the Buga Sphere's resonance maps to Lazar's design circulated online, showing uncanny parallels in trifold symmetry and internal energy flow. The sphere's behavior defied conventional physics, exhibiting energy interactions that were neither electromagnetic, thermal, nor mechanical. Researchers began to speculate that the object might operate on principles not yet understood, suggesting the possibility that Lazar's once-dismissed claims could be closer to reality than previously thought. Once the Buga Sphere emerged from Colombia and arrived in Mexico for controlled testing, the story quickly spread around the world. News outlets, online forums, and social media platforms were filled with discussions, images, and speculative videos of the metallic orb. While some journalists treated it as a curious anomaly or a hoax, others took a more measured approach, reaching out to scientists, engineers, and independent analysts for insight. Online communities, in particular, exploded with theories, ranging from advanced experimental aerospace technology to extraterrestrial origins. Every photo, video, and leak was analyzed extensively, often by people with no formal scientific training. Despite this, certain patterns in the sphere's behavior could not be ignored. Electromagnetic experiments performed in Mexico revealed the object did not react like ordinary metals. Sensors showed minor but consistent changes in weight, localized temperature shifts without heat input, and faint electromagnetic pulses that seemed to respond to the energy applied rather than resist it. Observers described the effect as the sphere breathing as if it were alive. Some technicians initially thought the readings were errors or calibration issues, but repeated tests confirmed the anomalies were real. These unexpected results caused excitement and concern among the scientific teams. They knew they were observing something unlike any conventional material. Amid the global fascination, the scientific community was divided. Some experts suggested that the sphere might simply be a cleverly designed art object or an experimental component from a classified aerospace project. Its perfectly smooth surface, lack of seams, and dense metallic composition could, in theory, be replicated using advanced manufacturing techniques. Others, however, argued that the combination of the internal cavities, symmetrical structure, and energy behavior went far beyond any known engineering principles. The leaked notes that mentioned a resonance pattern identical to 1989 theoretical model Lazar caught the attention of many researchers familiar with unconventional aerospace claims. Bob Lazar had previously described a gravity reactor at a secret facility called S4 near Area 51, and although his claims were dismissed for decades, the similarities to the Buga Sphere's internal arrangement were striking. Analysts pointed out that the orb's cavities were arranged around a central core, matching the trifold symmetry Lazar had sketched. Even the faint fiber-like channels linking the cavities resembled theoretical conduits designed to manipulate energy flows. While some dismissed this as coincidence, others could not ignore the detailed parallels. The debates were not limited to professional scientists. Online investigators and enthusiasts, often with backgrounds in physics or engineering, dissected every available image and video. They noticed energy patterns on magnetometers forming trilobe shapes rotating around a stable central node. The patterns appeared too precise to be random interference or measurement error. Discussions online shifted from questioning whether the object existed to speculating about its potential function. Some suggested that the sphere could represent the first evidence of a controlled gravity system, while others argue that humans were prone to seeing familiar patterns in ambiguous objects, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. Nevertheless, even cautious observers admitted that the harmonic oscillations, trifold symmetry, and electromagnetic responses combined to form a situation that could not be easily explained by mid-2025. International attention intensified. Universities, aerospace companies, and private labs requested access to the sphere for independent analysis. Many scientists urged caution, emphasizing the need for transparent testing and peer-reviewed results before drawing conclusions. Yet, access remained limited. Confidentiality agreements, institutional secrecy, and protective measures meant that much of the raw data was not publicly available. As a result, speculation continued to thrive. Some journalists reported that the sphere had been moved into a secure facility, possibly under government oversight, though no official confirmation was ever given. The lack of transparency only fueled conspiracy theories, suggesting that the technology could be too sensitive or too dangerous for public knowledge. Even as the world debated its origins and purpose, the Buga Sphere demonstrated behavior that challenged conventional physics. In one of the later experiments, the object was placed in a vacuum chamber and subjected to high-frequency electromagnetic fields. Sensors recorded a sudden stabilization, with chaotic feedback replaced by a precise harmonic oscillation forming 3 rotating nodes around a central pulse. To many observers, this mirrored the behavior Lazar had once described for his theoretical gravity reactor. While some experts stressed that further verification was necessary, the convergence of observed patterns, structural symmetry, and energy responses left room for the possibility that Lazar's decades-old descriptions might not have been entirely fabricated. The sphere also reignited discussions about the limits of human understanding of gravity. For centuries, gravity has been treated as a constant force, one that could be measured but not manipulated. The Buga Sphere, if it indeed exhibited controlled gravitational effects, would challenge this foundational assumption. Skeptics caution that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, warning against confirmation bias and overinterpretation of patterns. Believers, on the other hand, saw the findings as vindication for Lazar and others who had suggested unconventional propulsion technologies existed long before mainstream science was willing to entertain the idea that AS testing of the Buga Sphere continued in Mexico. Independent analysts and curious researchers began noticing something that immediately grabbed attention. The internal structure of the sphere seemed to reflect a design first proposed decades ago by Bob Lazar. In 1989, Lazar appeared on television claiming that he had worked at a secret facility called S4, located near the infamous Area 51. He described a propulsion system unlike anything known to conventional science, powered by a super-heavy element, Element 115, then unknown to the scientific community. According to Lazar, when this element was bombarded with protons, it generated antimatter, which interacted with a target chamber to create an intense gravitational field. Surrounding this reactor were 3 amplifiers arranged in a specific pattern, designed to focus and control the gravity field, allowing the craft to manipulate space-time itself. At the time, his claims were ridiculed, dismissed as fantasy, and largely forgotten. There was no independent verification of the element or the reactor, and the scientific consensus was firmly skeptical. Yet now, decades later, the Buga Sphere seemed to exhibit features that resemble Lazar's sketches and descriptions in surprising detail. Leaked metallographic scans of the sphere revealed multiple internal cavities surrounding a dense central core. The cavities were arranged symmetrically, echoing the trifold pattern Lazar had drawn in his sketches. Analysts also observed fiber-like channels connecting these cavities, resembling Lazar's theoretical gravity waveguides, which were intended to control the directional flow of gravitational energy within the reactor. The convergence of symmetry, internal structure, and energy behavior could not easily be explained by conventional physics or simple coincidence. Even engineers and physicists who had approached the sphere with skepticism admitted that the patterns were too precise to be dismissed. While it was theoretically possible for naturally optimized mechanical systems, like turbines, gyroscopes, or fluidic devices, to display symmetrical features, the combination of trifold configuration, dense central mass, and measurable energy reactions made the case compelling. This sparked a new wave of discussion. Could Lazar's controversial claims, long ignored by mainstream science, be closer to reality than anyone had imagined? Observers and online theorists compare the data from electromagnetic experiments to Lazar's descriptions of his gravity reactor. When high-frequency fields were applied to the sphere, the instruments recorded stable harmonic oscillations, forming three nodes rotating in sync around a central pulse. The readings suggested that the object was not merely storing or dissipating energy like an ordinary conductor. Instead, it seemed to actively redirect and modulate the input, almost like a self-contained feedback system. This type of controlled resonance is exactly what Lazar had described as the first stage of gravity amplification. The phrase gravity amplifier appeared in internal lab notes, initially as a joke among technicians, but repeated tests showed that the object's behavior could not be ignored. The sphere appeared to respond to the electrical input with consistent, precise patterns, which prompted some analysts to suggest that it might be capable of manipulating gravitational forces, at least in a localized, small-scale experiment. Skeptics, however, urged caution. They argue that humans are predisposed to recognize patterns, even where none exist, a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia. They suggested that the similarities between the Buga Sphere and Lazar's reactor could be coincidental, or the result of applying pre-existing theoretical frameworks to explain ambiguous data. Others pointed out that interference patterns, harmonic oscillations, and trifold arrangements are not exclusive to any one system and can emerge in a variety of engineered or natural structures. Yet, those who study the data closely noted the extremely low probability of random coincidence, particularly given the combination of symmetry, internal energy routing, and measurable responses to electromagnetic charges. The sphere's resemblance to Lazar's designs caused renewed global attention. Researchers began to revisit his old interviews, comparing them to the sphere's X-ray profiles, resonance maps, and metallographic scans. In some side-by-side comparisons, the alignment of cavity, central mass, and connecting channels was striking, producing a near-exact geometric match. To believers, this was more than coincidence. It was potential evidence that Lazar had described a working concept decades before independent verification could be attempted. To skeptics, it was an intriguing anomaly, but still lacking proof. Regardless of perspective, the parallels sparked international debate about whether human understanding of gravity and propulsion could be incomplete. The unfolding story also highlighted a growing tension between secrecy and transparency. Although multiple labs had access to the sphere, only limited data was publicly shared. Fragments of experimental logs describe phenomena such as localized field compression and gravity distortion detection within proximity thresholds, terms that did not appear in early reports released to the press. Attempts to replicate the experiments or independently verify the results were complicated by confidentiality agreements and the eventual disappearance of the sphere from public view. Some sources suggested that the object had been moved to a secure location, possibly under government custody, while others speculated that it had been dismantled to prevent misuse. The mystery surrounding both the object and its data only deepened, fueling online speculation and keeping the debate alive. By mid-2025, discussions around the sphere were no longer limited to scientists and enthusiasts. Mainstream media outlets began covering the story more seriously, revisiting Lazar's claims with less derision and more curiosity. Articles highlighted the uncanny parallels between the sphere's internal configuration and his reactor sketches, while emphasizing that independent verification remained impossible. For many observers, this was the first time that Lazar's story, long dismissed as fringe, had intersected with a contemporary scientific phenomenon in a way that could not be ignored. It was no longer a question of whether he was lying, but whether his decades-old observations might have captured principles of physics that the rest of the world was only now beginning to glimpse. As news of the Buga Sphere spread across the globe, public fascination escalated at a rapid pace. Within days of the leaked footage and images, online communities were flooded with theories, discussions, and speculative analyses. Social media became a battleground between skeptics and believers. Some dismiss the sphere as an elaborate hoax or cleverly fabricated art object, pointing to its metallic composition of known elements such as aluminum, zinc, magnesium, nickel, and manganese. Others, however, were captivated by its reported behavior, trifold symmetry, and electromagnetic responses that appear to defy conventional physics. Every video clip showing the orb in controlled tests, every leaked laboratory note, and every image of its micro-etched surface sparked intense online debate. Forums dedicated to unexplained phenomena, aerospace technology, and fringe science dissected the evidence in detail. In these discussions, even minor anomalies, like rhythmic energy pulses, micromovements resisting gravity, or changes in weight and electromagnetic feedback, were analyzed and reanalyzed, often with dramatic speculation about their significance. Speculation soon extended to the possibility that the sphere was not of terrestrial origin. Observers noted that the object's properties, perfectly spherical, unusually dense for its size, cool to the touch despite sun exposure, and capable of internal energy modulation, did not match any known manufactured object or natural phenomenon. Some theorists propose that it could be a fragment of an advanced satellite, a classified aerospace prototype, or even the first verified evidence of extraterrestrial technology. The Colombian farmers who initially reported the sphere described a metallic hum and a flash of light across the night sky before it landed gently in a field near Buga. The lack of radar detection or conventional flight activity in the area seemed to support claims that the object had arrived through means unknown to human technology. While official authorities, including the Colombian Civil Aviation Authority and Air Force, treated the incident as a local anomaly, unofficial reports suggested that foreign entities were already requesting access to the site where the object had been recovered. This combination of mystery, secrecy, and seemingly inexplicable phenomena fueled global speculation about its origins. The sphere also reignited intense debate about Bob Lazar's decades-old claims. Comparisons between Lazar's sketches of a gravity reactor and the orb's internal structure were widely circulated online, particularly after images of the resonance patterns and X-ray scans leaked. For believers, the parallels were too precise to be coincidental. The trifold symmetry, central core, and connecting fiber-like channels appear to mirror the conceptual layout of Lazar's theoretical gravity amplifiers. Even the harmonic oscillations recorded during electromagnetic testing closely matched the frequencies Lazar had described for his reactor decades earlier. For skeptics, however, the resemblance was not enough to prove anything. They cautioned against jumping to conclusions, emphasizing that humans are predisposed to see patterns and assign meaning where none exists. Despite these warnings, the sphere became a symbol of a potential technological leap, a tangible manifestation of ideas that had once been dismissed as fantasy as the story gained momentum. The behavior of scientific teams further intrigued the public. While early tests had been documented, subsequent experiments and observations were never released to the press. Lab tours and demonstrations ceased, and researchers involved in the testing stopped providing updates. Social media accounts of team members went inactive, and references to the project were removed. This sudden silence was interpreted by many as evidence that the findings were too significant or too dangerous to make public. Speculation about government involvement or private acquisition of the sphere only grew. Some suggested that the object had been transported to a secure aerospace facility in the United States, while others hypothesized that it had been dismantled for study or safety concerns. Regardless of the truth, the disappearance of the sphere from public view intensified the mystery and fueled discussions about secrecy, power, and the potential implications of its technology. In addition to secrecy, the public also focused on the broader implications if the sphere's properties were confirmed. The ability to manipulate gravitational forces would challenge fundamental assumptions of physics, opening possibilities for advanced propulsion systems, energy generation, and even space travel. Scientists and engineers who had cautiously observed the data acknowledged that, if verified, the sphere could represent a paradigm shift in understanding the universe. At the same time, critics urged restraint, warning that misinterpretation, sensationalism, and confirmation bias could distort perceptions. Yet the story's reach extended beyond scientific circles. Popular media, documentaries, and YouTube channels devoted to UFOs and unexplained phenomena began covering the Buga Sphere, often emphasizing the Lazar connection, harmonic oscillations, and mysterious disappearance. The object had become more than a local curiosity. It had evolved into a global phenomenon, raising fundamental questions about the limits of science, the role of secrecy, and humanity's readiness to confront technology that challenges the known laws of physics. BY mid 2025, the Buga Sphere had cemented itself as a topic of relentless public fascination. Every week, new claims emerged. Supposed photos of the object in transport, anecdotal reports from individuals claiming insider knowledge, and speculative stories of private laboratories attempting replication. None of these claims could be independently verified, but each added fuel to a growing narrative that the object was extraordinary. Whether it represented a breakthrough in gravitational science, a sophisticated hoax, or the first glimpse of extraterrestrial technology, one fact remained clear. The sphere had captured the world's imagination, rekindled interest in Bob Lazar's once-dismissed theories, and raised questions that science, secrecy, and public curiosity had yet to answer after months of intense study and public fascination. The Buga Sphere seemingly vanished from view. Following the final round of experiments in mid-2025, all public communication from the research team ceased. Laboratory doors were closed, press briefings stopped, and researchers involved in the project became unreachable. Social media accounts connected to the investigation were deactivated or scrubbed of content related to the sphere. Even independent analysts who had been following the project closely reported that any recent data or images were impossible to verify. The sudden disappearance created a vacuum of information, prompting speculation about the reasons behind such a level of secrecy. Was the sphere moved to government custody? Was it dismantled for safety or technological reasons? Or was the entire project being quietly archived to avoid public panic or commercial exploitation? No official explanation has been provided, and the object's current whereabouts remain unknown. Speculation about control and ownership of the sphere quickly grew. Journalists investigating the story reported rumors of private aerospace laboratories requesting access to the object, as well as foreign entities expressing interest. Some theories suggested that it had been transported to a secure facility in the United States, while others argued that it remained in Mexico under strict protection. Leaked internal documents indicated that during the final experimental phase, the sphere displayed phenomena labeled as gravity distortion detection and localized field compression, events that had no public analog in prior reports. These findings suggested that the object's behavior might have crossed a threshold, demonstrating properties that could fundamentally challenge our understanding of physics. Yet without verification, no conclusions could be drawn. For the scientific community, this secrecy presented a dilemma. Curiosity and excitement were tempered by the impossibility of peer review or replication. The sphere had become simultaneously the most studied and the most inaccessible object on Earth. The implications of the Buga Sphere's existence, if verified, are profound. The ability to manipulate gravity, even on a small scale, would revolutionize multiple fields of science and technology. Advanced propulsion systems could be developed, potentially enabling spacecraft to maneuver without relying on conventional fuel. Energy generation could be reimagined if the sphere's internal systems were harnessing previously unknown physical principles. Even fundamental physics could be challenged. Gravity might no longer be viewed as a constant or purely passive force, but rather as a controllable and dynamic phenomenon. The harmonic resonance patterns observed during testing, particularly the trifold configuration and energy feedback loops, suggest the object may operate under principles that are theoretically possible yet technologically unattainable with current human understanding.